There's this strange thing that happens as you get better at what you do. You'd think things would get easier, right? But for high performers, it's often the opposite. The pressure actually goes up. And this paradox, it reveals something really fundamental about how stress actually works.
And that's the signal we're looking at. It's totally counterintuitive. We're all taught to believe that more skill should mean more ease, more breathing room. But the reality is often the exact opposite. Your greatest strength, the very thing you've worked so hard on, your capability, it actually becomes the source of this invisible pressure.
So, why does getting better feel harder? That's the central question, isn't it? It's something that so many leaders, creators, and really any professional at the top of their game asks themselves. And if you've ever felt this, I want you to know you are absolutely not alone. This is not a personal failing. It's a predictable pattern.
Okay, so first, let's just establish what this paradox actually looks like out in the real world. Because this isn't just a vague feeling, it's a real phenomenon, and it shows up everywhere the stakes are high. And here's the core of it, the fundamental equation of this paradox. The more you can do, the more you feel you must do. It's like as your capacity grows, the weight of what feels absolutely necessary just gets heavier and heavier. Your sense of responsibility doesn't just grow with your skill, it expands right alongside it, and a lot of the time, it completely outpaces it.
And believe me, this pattern is universal. It repeats everywhere. Think about the senior surgeon in a complex operation, or the startup founder trying to scale a company. Think about a military commander or an air traffic controller. The dynamic is exactly the same. Increased capability leads to a bigger cognitive and emotional load. It's crucial to see this for what it is, a systemic issue, not an individual one.
So if we know what's happening, the next logical question is why? What's the invisible mechanism that's actually driving all this pressure? Well, that's what we call the inflation mechanism.
The mechanism has a name. It's called expectation inflation. And here's how it works. As you get better at something, your own internal definition of success gets narrower and way more demanding. You're no longer just trying to avoid a disaster. You've shifted your goal to pursuing a perfectly optimized, flawless outcome.
The whole process starts with something good, right? You gain a new skill, you get more experience, but that immediately raises your internal standards. And suddenly, all those things that used to be good enough are now mentally recategorized as minor failures that have to be prevented. So your brain starts scanning for a much, much wider range of potential negative outcomes, which, as you can imagine, dramatically increases your cognitive load.
So what's the end result of all this? Your threat surface expands. It's a great metaphor. Think of it like a cybersecurity expert. The more systems you're responsible for, the more potential vulnerabilities you have to monitor. Your own competence expands the territory you now feel compelled to defend. And this right here, this explains why this kind of stress is so often misunderstood. From the outside, people see your resources and skills, and they just assume your stress is about having too much to do, workload volume. But internally, the reality is the pressure is coming from your expectation bandwidth. It's the sheer number of tiny variables you feel you have to control just to meet your own ever-rising standard of success.
Now, when this mechanism is left to run unchecked, it starts to build into something much more serious. Over years, it carries a really severe, but often totally invisible cost.
Yeah, the long-term effects are just corrosive. You can end up living in this state of chronic anticipatory stress, just constantly waiting for something to go wrong. Your thinking gets more rigid, you become highly, highly intolerant of even the smallest mistakes. And why? Because in your inflated model of success, even a minor deviation feels like a direct hit to your identity.
So here's the crucial takeaway from all this. Burnout is almost never a sudden event. It's the logical conclusion after years and years of misinterpreting these internal pressure signals. It's the direct result of a fundamental misalignment between your capability and your perception of what's required.
Okay, so if the problem is a system of perception, then the solution can't just be about coping tactics, right? Breathing exercises aren't going to fix this. It requires a total reframe of your entire internal operating model, and that is the resilient reframe. See, people who are psychologically resilient aren't just, better at managing their time or using some clever stress relief techniques. That's not it at all. They have a fundamentally different mental orientation toward pressure, toward failure, and toward success itself. Let's break that down. The fragile mindset, the one driven by that expectation inflation we talked about, tries to prevent every single possible failure, which is, of course, an impossible task.
The resilient mindset, on the other hand, shifts the goal completely. It's not about preventing failure. It's about managing the definition of failure. It's about being able to distinguish between what's an actual identity-level threat and what's just simple operational noise. You know, the inevitable friction that comes with doing complex work.
So, to bring this all back to you, we're going to end not with easy answers, but with a few questions. And these are designed to help you take a hard look at your own internal operating system.
First question. What are you demanding of yourself that literally no one else is? Really think about your own internal performance threshold. Where have you set a bar for yourself that's invisibly creating this constant, low-grade pressure?
Second, which failures are actually just operational noise that you've accidentally labeled as identity threats? Think back on the last few weeks. Consider the small errors, the little deviations from the perfect plan. Which of those did you interpret not as simple friction, but as some negative reflection on your core competence? And finally, maybe the most important question of all. Is your internal definition of success actually serving you anymore? Or has it become a cage? Has your own incredible drive for excellence created a definition of success that's so narrow, so demanding, that it no longer empowers you, but instead it just traps you in a cycle of relentless, exhausting vigilance? Something to think about.